Hi everyone, it's Shea. Welcome to or back to my channel. I personally have been studying Italian for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years now, and I'm at around a B1 level. So in this video, I wanted to share some of the top 10 mistakes that I've made while learning a new language. So hopefully maybe you won't make those same mistakes if you're trying to learn a new language right now. I feel like now that I've been studying for over a year, I definitely have recognized ways that I've been studying that weren't as effective, but also some mindset stuff that kind of hindered me during my studying. So I'm just gonna go through a top 10 list of all the mistakes that I have encountered while learning a new language. And I just wanna remind everyone that these are my personal mistakes. Maybe for you, these would be a little bit different, or they might not all apply to you, but the ways that might not work for me might still work for you. Language learning is a very personalized thing, so don't necessarily take this as this is how you have to study or this is the only way that will work. So this video is sponsored by Skillshare, which I'm very excited about and very happy to work with them. So I will be talking more about Skillshare later on in this video. Okay, so my first mistake was trying to learn the way that we learned in school. Whether it was middle school, high school, college, there's usually a similar structure to how we were learning new languages within school. And so of course, if you want to learn a new language at home, you probably will use that same method or something similar. But the thing in schools is that they could kind of put this one size fits all kind of method to use for all the students, when now that I've been studying a new language, I kind of realized that everyone has their own ways that they like to study. So when I first started learning Italian, I bought some workbooks and textbooks to work through because that's what I thought I should be doing. So I was doing things like practicing conjugations and writing all those out, going through workbooks, really studying grammar, going through hundreds of flashcards. And while I think part of this is beneficial, it's definitely not the only way or the right way to learn a new language. I think to some extent it was helpful for an introduction into the language, getting familiar with different verb tenses by doing conjugations, learning some of the most common vocabulary, learning some basic grammar rules. But I realized that it definitely was not the most effective way for me to learn. And if you think about it, you're speaking a language so that you can speak the language with other people. So if you're trying to just learn from a book and just do workbook exercises, which most of the time the sentences that you're writing for these workbook exercises, you'll probably never use them because it will be like, ask Dan for the blue pencil. When would I ever say that? And honestly, it was just super frustrating and not a fun way to learn. And I realized that in order to stay motivated to keep studying Italian, I have to actually enjoy it. And if I wasn't enjoying it this way, then Number 2. So another mistake that I did was focusing too much on grammar, and grammar is super hard in any language. It's also really easy if you get too focused on it to get really discouraged very quickly. When I thought about it some more, I thought, okay, when you're learning a new language as a baby, are you focusing on grammar? When you're a baby, are you like, that's a conjunction, this is an adverb, that's a noun? No, you're focusing more on how to mimic sounds and be able to express your thoughts to other people while talking. And a lot of times grammar just comes through using the language, and you just kind of learn grammar by using the language. Now, I don't want people coming after me and saying, but you have to learn grammar, because you definitely do. Instead of focusing so much on grammar itself and just trying to do grammar exercises, I did a little bit of that. But for me, I've learned a lot of grammar, like I said, through actually using the language. So I started to pick up on grammar, whether it's like word order or certain phrases or ways that you would say something in Italian versus English, just by speaking with my tutor or speaking with native speakers. So I feel like don't focus so much on trying to learn grammar when if you have a good like baseline and then you use it and you learn grammar through actually talking and language exchange, then it'll come a lot more naturally. I don't think it's something where you need to spend hours and hours trying to understand or memorize, when it's better to just actually learn it through utilizing the language. So I'm not saying don't study grammar, definitely study grammar, but for me, the mistake that I learned was focusing too much on grammar. Mistake number 3, not practicing enough writing. For the longest time, I never really wrote in Italian because I didn't know if it was that beneficial. But what I soon realized is that if you aren't really able to speak with someone, you know, a native speaker, a tutor, then writing is the next best thing, because speaking and writing are both ways that you can use, you know, your brain and what you've learned to actually make sentences and express your thoughts. It's different than being able to understand a show or a movie that you're watching. So what I did for that is I started journaling in Italian, and I just made a video on that. Actually, it was my last video where I journaled in Italian for a week and just kind of reflected on that and my progress. So I definitely recommend writing, but then also getting whatever you write corrected by a native speaker. So that could be your tutor or someone on HelloTalk or Tandem, because you definitely don't want to just write and not know if your writing is correct. Definitely practice your writing. I know it's kind of annoying, don't avoid it. Just do like journal entries or little things daily or every other day. It doesn't have to be super long, but it's a good way to get extra practice. Number 4, I waited too long to get an italki tutor, or just any tutor. So like pretty much every single language learner, I was terrified to speak Italian to a native speaker or just to anyone out loud, because it's hard and I was embarrassed by like my accent and I felt like I didn't know enough. So I kind of had this thought where, okay, well, I'll get a tutor when I actually know enough Italian, when I can really fully express myself and be able to have a conversation in Italian. You get a tutor so you could practice and learn the language, but I think sometimes I'm such a perfectionist that I don't want to make any mistakes. I was scared of making mistakes, so I thought, okay, well, I'll talk to a tutor when I won't be making any mistakes. But then how would I be learning? I don't know, it just didn't make any sense. So I kept waiting for some right time to get a tutor until finally I just ripped off the band-aid and booked a tutor. I was so scared. I've gotten so much better from the practice, from talking with a tutor every single week, but definitely don't feel overwhelmed. Like honestly, 30 minutes goes by pretty quick. So if you're a little bit scared, really all you have to do, you're not gonna be able to convince yourself it's the right time. You just have to book it and do it, and then you're like, okay. Like I said, there's really no way you'll be able to be like, yeah, today's the day, I'm ready. Because that's just not gonna happen. Highly recommend checking out italki for whatever language you're learning. I think they have tutors for like every language, so definitely check that out. I have a code down below to get $10 off, and again, highly recommend. I love my tutor. I think it's a great way to learn a new language. Number 5, for the longest time, I didn't really have a structured language learning schedule. For me, structure, to-do lists, all that kind of stuff is very important to me. If I don't have a to-do list, I just simply don't do anything. So I figured I should also do that with my language learning. That's why I started making a study schedule for the whole week. I just go by a week, not by like a whole month or anything, because I think a week is a good breakdown of what you want to do every day, every other day, whatever. And that's also good because then you can plan out the different types of activities you want to do. So that way you make sure that you're not doing too much of one activity and falling short in other areas. So that's why it's really good to actually like plan out your days. I try to stay realistic with my schedule. I just try to find ways to incorporate Italian into my daily routine because I work and I do a lot of stuff during the week, so it is kind of hard to fit it in. If you need help creating a schedule, routine, planner kind of thing, I got you covered because I actually have a workbook for $7, and I'll link it down below, and it helps you create your own study schedule. It has a whole list of ideas for different exercises you can do within the reading, writing, speaking, listening categories, as well as helps you set some short-term goals and then some long-term goals. So it's a pretty good guide. Like I said, it's $7 and you can buy it, download it right away and get started. I know a lot of people have found it really helpful. I use it. So if you want to make a structured study routine, definitely check that out. When you're learning something new, it's always good to have a plan of attack. And speaking of learning something new, I want to take this moment now to tell you more about Skillshare. So I've been using Skillshare for a few years now. I've actually learned how to edit all my YouTube videos by watching Skillshare videos. So if you've never heard of Skillshare, it's an online community with thousands of inspiring classes for creatives, people that want to learn something new, explore some new passions, or deepen some existing passions. Whether you're a beginner at something or a pro, as long as you're curious and you want to learn something new, Skillshare definitely has something for you. That rhymed. They have a bunch of video lessons combined with a class project, so that way you can use everything that you've learned within that class to create a project. They have classes on productivity, film and photography, video, which are my favorite top 3, but then they also have a bunch of other categories for other creative people. Right now, I'm working through Jessica Kobeisi's portrait photography course, which is super cool because I follow her on YouTube. I really like how she starts off with like planning your shoot and gathering all your equipment to actually talking about different shooting locations, and then also even talking about editing and retouching your final photos. So it's really just like start to finish how to get really good photos, because I'm also definitely trying to step up my Instagram game. I also have a few more other courses on my kind of just running to-do list of Skillshare classes I want to take from 2 of my favorite YouTube creators actually. Nathaniel Drew has a Skillshare course called Document Your Life, 4 Ways to Live More Intentionally, which I'm really excited about and I can't wait to watch because I love his YouTube content, as well as Sorella Moore. She has a video all about YouTube success. So those are a few videos just as an example of what's on my list for Skillshare courses that I want to take. And the thing that I really like about it is that it is curated for learning. So there are no ads like in the middle of the videos. They're always launching new premium classes and really super well done courses. So you really feel like you get a lot out of any course that you could take. And you can access all of these courses for less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. So it's not like you have to pay for each course. You can pay less than $10 a month annually and get access to all of these amazing resources and learn something new. As my treat to you guys, the first 1,000 people who click the link in my description will get a free trial of premium access, so that way you can get started on exploring a new creative endeavor or deepening a passion of yours through Skillshare. So be sure to go click that link in the description and get started on a new Skillshare course. Now let's get back to the video. Moving on to mistake number 6. I spent a lot of time trying to research the right way to learn a new language instead of focusing on my own preferences. I'm sure many of you, if you're like me, get pretty frustrated and also feel like, okay, there has to be some way that it will be faster to learn a new language, or some sort of hack or something that I'm missing out on. I watched a lot of other people's language learning videos, and I soon came to realize that there's no real best way or fastest way to learn a language. You should focus more on what the best ways for you personally to learn a language are. So I became more aware of things that I liked and that I didn't like, so I knew that workbooks just weren't fun for me. I didn't like working through those exercises and I didn't really find them super helpful. I also don't really like spending a ton of time reviewing flashcards. So I realized things I did like doing was watching Italian YouTubers, watching Netflix series, movies, of course. I guess, you know, who wouldn't like doing that? I also really love reading books in Italian. So finding a good fiction book with a really cool story in Italian, really love doing that. And I also really like talking to native speakers, whether that's my tutor or people that I found on Tandem or HelloTalk, and just talking to them and learning about their culture, because I also am just really fascinated with the Italian culture. So getting to learn more about that in Italian is really interesting to me. So I highly recommend that you start figuring out what things you don't like and what things you do like. If you hate studying grammar, doing conjugations, doing other stuff that's like necessary to learn a language, you might have to do some stuff that you don't necessarily like, but it's important for making progress. So when you are studying, pay attention to what seems like a chore and what seems actually enjoyable to you, because you don't want your language learning to feel like a chore, because once that starts happening, you will lose interest and motivation and it just won't be fun and you won't want to study anymore. Mistake number 7, I spent too long trying to study vocabulary. Basically, I don't like spending 30-45 minutes just going through flashcards. You know, you could go through and do flashcards and memorize them, and then maybe you don't do them until the next week and you forget a lot of them and you have to redo it again. And it's just kind of a waste because you'll forget all those words that you just learned. I think the most beneficial way to learn vocabulary is to actually use it when you're talking with someone. So for example, for me, there have been some words in Italian where every time the flashcard comes up, I just can't remember it. Like I've gone over it so many times and I just can't remember the translation. But once I started using that word over and over again while I was talking with my tutor, I realized that then it really solidified into my memory. Because once I knew how to use it within a sentence, how to use it with context, it really helped me commit it to memory. Don't spend so much time just like looking at the words by themselves. If there's any way you can use a word in context, whether that's writing or speaking, or maybe you're hearing it from like a YouTuber or something, those are definitely more efficient ways to learn vocabulary. Mistake number 8. This one goes along with reading. So a mistake that I did was trying to translate word for word whenever I was reading a short story or now like Italian books. So in most languages, things don't translate word for word from one language to another. That's just not how it works, unfortunately. So when I was reading Italian stories, sometimes I would think about the translation of the word I saw. I would try to say it in my mind. Then I would end up with weird sentences that didn't make sense to me. And I was like, what? I tried to focus less on translating every single word and focusing more on the general idea. And I feel like it's really hard to describe. It's more of just, you know, focusing on words that you do understand and then using context to kind of fill in the words that you don't. And again, that sounds really confusing and I wish I had a better way of describing it. It also helped me pick out common phrases because I was able to look at a bigger picture than focus on every single little word. Because, you know, some of the sayings or different colloquialisms that we have in English don't translate to Italian, but there might be like an Italian equivalent. When you are reading a short story, as long as you get the idea of the plot of what's happening, you're doing a good job. So don't focus too much on tiny details. Focus more on big picture. You'll know when you get it. You'll know when you know. I never said I was a teacher. I don't know how to explain things very well. Mistake number 9, not speaking enough and only getting input from watching series, movies, YouTubers. I'm at a B1 level in Italian based on like some tests that I've taken, but I feel like my comprehension is so much higher than my ability to actually speak. So when I'm talking to my tutor, I can understand everything. When I watch YouTubers, I've made so much progress because some YouTubers that I thought spoke really fast and I could not understand a single word, now I understand them, and that's really cool. But when I want to say something in Italian or respond to my tutor, it definitely takes me a long time and it's a lot harder for me to get my thoughts out into words in Italian. I've heard that this is a common thing because it's a lot easier to just get a lot of input from movies, songs, TV shows, whatever, and be able to understand a lot quicker. It just has made me realize that I do need to work more on speaking, like forcing myself to speak more and write more, so that way I can get them more to the same level. Mistake number 10 is I compared myself to others and their language learning journeys, process, whatever. As I post videos online, I've gotten a lot of people commenting saying, okay, I've been studying about the same amount of time as you have, but I'm at a higher level. I have been studying for 3 years and I'm not even at your level. I think it's important for us to remember that we're all on a different language learning journey. We all have different amounts of time that we can actually devote to studying. A lot of people say to me, well, I'm a student and I barely have time, but I really want to learn a new language. I get that because for me, I have a very demanding full-time job, plus trying to make all this stuff for YouTube and blogging and all that other stuff. Some of us just don't have as much time as others do. There might be some people out there who can devote hours a day to studying a new language and they might progress faster than you. Or some people might be living in the country and therefore they're getting a lot more practice being actually immersed in the language and the culture. So you just have to remember that everyone is in different situations that will help them or hinder them during their language learning process. It's not a competition, even though a lot of people make it out to be some sort of competition about how fast you can learn or how many languages you can learn. Like I've said before, language learning is definitely a marathon and not a sprint. If you want to learn a new language, you're in it for the long haul because learning a language is a lifelong process. Just keep that in the back of your mind as you're learning. So I know that we've went through a lot in this video. I hope you learned something from my list of 10 mistakes and hopefully you don't make those similar mistakes. If you have any questions for me, definitely leave them in the comments below. Make sure to check out my language workbook if you want to create your own study routine. And also be sure to check out the link for Skillshare because the first 1,000 people who click on it will get a free premium trial. I'm trying to think of some other video ideas to do, so if you have any that you want to see, definitely comment them below. If you like this video, give it a like, and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos of mine. And I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!